Welcome. Welcome to everyone here and all of our wonderful family that likes to watch on Zoom. First, I'd like to point out that there is an insert in your bulletin, which you will find out about during the lesson. Okay. Welcome. So, welcome. I ran across a quotation which I thought is very appropriate. It's by someone, I think I have heard this person's name before, but did not know what he did. His name is Noam Chomsky, and he's a professor, and he is what they call the father of modern linguistics, which I will have to admit I did not look up, but I know it has to do with words. But the quotation, and I thought it was a nice thing to start with now because of our coming up annual meeting and change in board members. And the quote is, "Optimism is strategy for making a better future. Because unless you believe that the future can be better, you are unlikely to step up and take responsibility for making it so." So, our speaker today is our own lovely Christine Bingham, wearing a gorgeous outfit. And let's help you here. You need to position there to where you'd like it.
Okay. Thank you.
And make sure people can hear you. So
Okay.
you want to that's about right.
Little short me. Okay. The topic of my sermon is seeing the divine in other people. The sixth principle of spiritualism, which we just said, states, we believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This principle, taken from the words of Jesus in the New Testament, is expressed throughout world religions. Holy writings of Hinduism say, this is the sum of duty. Do not unto others which would cause pain unto you. The writings in Zoroastrianism say, that nature only is good when it shall not do unto another whatever is not good for its own self. Taoist writings say, regard your neighbor's gain as your own gain, and your neighbor's loss as your own loss. The Buddhist Udana says, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Islamic writings say, none of you truly believes until he loves for his brother what he loves for himself. You can see how important this all-encompassing principle is by looking at the bulletin board in the fellowship room above the coffee table. Even more instances of the golden rule are posted there on the bulletin board. Now, in order to see others as our neighbors and as our brothers and sisters, we must look for the divinity in them, just as we have a spark of divinity in ourselves. The rest of my sermon will be an illustration of this point by telling several true stories. The first story is from my friend Shelley's daughter, Elsie. Elsie is a 21-year-old college student who lives in New York City. She recently had the following experience. I was walking home quite early in the morning after a night that ended with a bad decision. Disoriented by the night I had, I typed in the code and entered my building. I didn't realize that a man had followed me into the mailbox room, a small space between the first door to enter and the second door into the lobby. He violently threw me headlong against the metal door frame, ripped my purse off my arm, breaking the leather strap, and ran out. Without a moment of pause, I sprinted after him, too shocked to be terrified. I was sure that I could get my bag back. After all, there was no money in it. I'm a poor college student, and all that was in there was keys, debit card, and driver's license. I chased him for half a block, but easily caught him. I yelled at him to give my bag back. He seemed completely shocked that I was there. I'm just a junkie, he said, frenzied. I insisted that I had nothing to give him. I explained that there was no money in the bag. When he opened the purse, I reached in and pulled out the keys and cards. He gave up, and I took the bag. I told him that he really scared me. I told him that I hope he learns from this and never does it again. He was speechless. Then I asked if I could give him a hug, and he nodded. I gave him a hug. I still don't know why I did that. Some people are appalled when I tell them this, and I get it. He bruised me up pretty bad. But for some reason, in that moment, I wanted to give him a hug. A similar story was broadcast on NPR radio. This story starts in Washington, D.C., with 8 friends gathered around a backyard dinner table on a warm summer night. They were celebrating, toasting friendship and family, and the new restaurant that one of the women had opened earlier in the week, and everyone was having a good time. It was kind of one of those great evenings, lots of awesome food and French wine. It was like a magical night, said Michael Rabdow. He says it was getting later in the evening, maybe around 10, when it happened. I was standing beside my wife, and I just saw this arm with a long-barrel gun kind of come between us. It was as if, in slow motion, this hand appeared, and then it got really quiet. The hand belonged to a man, medium height in a clean, high-end sweatsuit. He raised the gun and held it first to Michael's friend Christina, and then to the head of Michael's wife. And then he said, "Give me your money or I'm going to start effing shooting." He looked anxious, very nervous. His tone was very aggressive. I mean, when he said, "Give me your money or I'm going to start effing shooting," we believed him. But there was a problem, which was that no one at the party actually had money. It was a fluke thing, but there it was. So they just started talking, grasping for some way to dissuade the man, and naturally they started with guilt. "You know, like, what would your mother think of you?" said Michael. And he said something like, "I don't have an effing mother." The exchange got more and more tense. It was just fueling the atmosphere of danger. Michael remembers thinking, this is headed towards a very bad end. Someone was going to get hurt, if not all of us. This was it. But then one of the women at the table, Christina, piped up with an offer for the man. She said, "We're here celebrating. Why don't you have a glass of wine and sit down?" And it was like a switch. Michael said, remembering how the look on the man's face suddenly changed. You could feel the difference. It was definitely the right thing to say. He tasted the wine and just said, "Damn, that's a really good glass of wine." And we're like, "Well, have some more." And we poured him some more wine, and we had some cheese there too. And so he reached down for the cheese, and then he put the gun in his pocket, and he sat down. The man drank his wine and ate his cheese, and then he said something that no one expected. He said almost to himself, "Hey, I think I've come to the wrong place." And we were all like, "We understand, these things happen." For a moment, they all sat there together, the stars overhead twinkling, the sounds of chirping insects in the night air. Michael continued, and then he said something just so strange. He just said, "Can I get a hug?" And my wife hugged him, and our friend hugged him. And then he said, "Can we have a group hug?" And so everyone got up and formed a circle around the man. I can't tell you how strange that was, but we all did come around and give him a big hug, and he said he was sorry, and then he walked out with a glass of wine out the gate. All they could think of to do was run in the house and hug and cry, half in fear, half in gratitude and relief. Michael concluded, it was like it was a miracle. It was just a miracle. Another story first made the news 8 years ago. An accidental text message in 2016 led to a Thanksgiving tradition that has continued ever since. It all started when Wanda Dench sent a text message to the wrong number. She thought she was inviting her grandson to dinner, but 17-year-old Jamal Hinton got the text instead. The two figured out the mistake and then sent selfies to each other, with Hinton jokingly asking if he could come over anyway. Dench texted, "Of course you can. That's what grandmas do. Feed everyone." Since then, the two have met up every year and documented the annual tradition on social media with selfies. One year, Hinton even accompanied Dench to get her first tattoo. Their lasting friendship bridged generational and racial gaps. When asked in an interview what would have happened if she hadn't invited Hinton over a year ago, Dench replied, "I would have missed out on a wonderful relationship. I've changed my view so much on the younger generation." The next two stories I have are from Reader's Digest. Carmita Pyle of Los Angeles, California wrote, "Recently I was reminded of something from 60 years ago. We had been married a little over a year, and I didn't know much about cooking. My husband Bill wanted chicken and dumplings. At 19, I had no idea how to fix that. We were new to the area and didn't know anybody. So I just dialed a random phone number in our area and explained my situation. The lady on the other end didn't miss a beat. She explained in detail. I must have listened well. Bill thought it was great." And Shuang Tai of Arlington, Virginia recalls, "1 month after we moved to the United States from halfway around the globe, I drove to Dulles International Airport near Washington, D.C., with my wife to pick up her boss's guest. When we got back to the parking lot, our car was dead. It was an unexpected and embarrassing situation. Since we were new to the area, we were stuck. Then a gentleman who parked his car a few spots over came to help us jump our car. Next time it might be me in your position," he said. "Spread the love." And finally, to wrap it all up, the final story, also from Reader's Digest, is from J.P. McAvoy. Back in 1957, he wrote, "Years ago, I brought my 2 girls up from Cuba in the late spring and put them in public school down the road. They talked a very peculiar language, neither English nor Spanish, and their first and second grade colleagues gave them a hard time, naturally, especially Lala, who was older and the ringleader terror of the tiny tots. Pat and Peggy came home crying almost every day, so I decided to cheer them up. 'Let's have a party,' I said. Pat and Peggy's tears dried magically. Right away they got creative. Ice cream, cake, big red balloons. 'And friends?' I said. The tears started again. 'We haven't got any friends,' Pat blubbered. Peggy wailed, 'Nothing but enemies.' Then I had one of my rare inspirations. 'Let's have an enemy party. Let's invite all your enemies, especially the worst ones, and we'll fill them up with ice cream and cake and give them big red balloons to take home.' Little Pat and Peggy exchanged knowing looks, and one of them said with an elegant Spanish gesture, 'Que pasa el viejo?' which means, 'What goes with the old one?' The enemy party was a merry success, and the best time was had by the biggest enemy, little Lala, who rolled on the floor and shrieked with delight. Pat and Peggy never came home crying from school anymore. Their biggest enemy had turned into their staunchest champion. Nobody dared lift a finger to them. Little Lala would have broken it off pronto. One day, Lala's father dropped by to see me. 'I come to thank you for asking my little girl to the party,' he said. And then he added, mystified, 'Why did you?' 'Why not?' I told him. 'She's a solid little citizen, and she likes ice cream, cake, and big red balloons, just like any other little girl.' 'Yes?' 'Oh, yes,' he said. 'But do you know something? Nobody ever asked her to a party before. Why?' A good question. Are the Lalas left out because they are enemies, or do they become enemies because they are left out? There are several schools of thought working on this, but the great teacher settled it long ago. Love your enemies, pray for them that persecute you, do good to them that hate you. And it'll drive them crazy because it works. I would now like to explain the slips of paper you were given in your bulletins. For those of you on Zoom and later on YouTube, my email address is on the back of the bulletin, which is posted on the website under the Sermons tab. If you send me your address, I can send you one of these columns too. These papers are taken from a column called Circle of Kindness in Women's World magazine. I gave them to you for you to remember that even in the tiniest ways, you too can practice seeing the divine in others and make the world a better place, one person at a time. Thank you.
Blessed light of love, creation of all that was, all that is, all that will be. We thank you for this morning, for this day, and for all of the messages and lessons that we have received. We thank you for the connections that we feel with all of life on this side and on the other side. We ask now that the veil between the worlds be closed and that we all return to our daily lives with the knowledge that all of you are there for us. Amen.
Amen.